government, but how is the government going about this business is what many people do not understand. And what is the government already doing in that regard is what many do not know. Beyond that, there are other areas in which the government has also talked about, saying it is trying to ensure that it improves the well-being of Nigerians. Agricultural sector is one other sector in which the governor has spoken much about and said he intends to make sure that sector is improved upon to in turn touch the lives of Rivers people. Well, today on the show we have with us the Rivers State Commissioner for Information, Mr. Joe Johnson, and we hope to get more details and find out what exactly the government is doing with regards to health and education. We seem to be one that has made headlines in recent times. You know that at the moment children are on holidays, but school will be resuming soon. Are we preparing for the resumption? Is there anything that these children will come back to school and meet that is different from what they saw before they went on holidays? Join us on Facebook at Nigeria Info 92.3 PH and share your thoughts with us. The question is simple. We would like to know what the state of primary schools and health centers are in your community at the moment. And this is basically so that the government gets an idea of where some of these infrastructure decay is located and see what can be done to improve their conditions. So on Facebook, Nigeria Info 92.3 PH, that is the handle. Stay with us. Conversation by welcoming my guest, the Honorable Commissioner for Information, Mr. Joe Johnson. Mr. Johnson, Happy New Week. Thank you for making our time to join us.
Good morning, Andrew.
All right, just so I add, the Commissioner just told me this morning he wasn't feeling too well. I can clearly see that, but I hope you feel a lot better.
Pray that happens.
Well, it is. It definitely will be. There's no other option except to improve and feel better. But to the conversation we have at hand, a lot of people have been wondering, they want to know and want to hear. For some people, in recent times, the idea that they have is that the governor has been talking tough at different occasions. And most recently, we had former Governor Dr. Peter Odili supporting and standing by the current administration, and we even had one of the council chairmen present at that event, and the comments that were made by the governor. For some people, it's some people say it's necessary, some others felt it wasn't too necessary, but the focal point is, for many, they believe that working would be a better way of silencing any sort of detractors, as the governor puts it. At the moment, what is on ground with regards to, let's start with education, especially primary education? When we look at the situation across many of the local governments in this state, it's nothing to write home about. Not to talk about the system first, but the infrastructure first. Many of them in really bad state. And we expect that it would have seen massive construction work ongoing, even to be hearing that we're seeing contractors across several of the schools, and work should be ongoing to at least renovate some of these primary schools. What is the situation? Is that something that we expected ahead of resumption?
Well, you recall that when His Excellency spoke last week, he was bold enough to say that 90% of our schools, particularly the primary schools, have no teachers. And then in most cases, you found 2 teachers in a school. That's deplorable. It tells you the level of decay on the social infrastructure in the state. And you know that trying to gain what we have lost in the last 10 years will require quite a lot of efforts and finances. And I'm sure that the governor, whose theory I have described as similarization theory, has an attitude to doing things without being too noisy. He's not very loquacious about whatever he intends to do. And I'm sure that quite a lot of preliminary things are being put in place, particularly in the areas of the primary schools. The secondary schools are having a fair deal. You know, if you look at the compilation of all the schools that we have touched, there are more of the secondary schools. But the primary schools, I must say, are in deplorable state. And I'm sure that callers who will be talking to us from various villages will attest to the fact that we do not just have the infrastructure, we do not also have the facilities there, and we don't even have the human capital to be able to run those.
So who's asking these questions? I mean, local government, we have the administrators at the local level who are supposed to also supervise the teachers and the condition of where these teachers are working.
Yes.
So if in the past couple of years the governor is coming out to say this, then it will only mean that some people have not been doing their job. So what's the situation?
The local government chairman or the local councils should take the blames of what's happening in the various local governments. But that's not even an excuse. The fact remains that we are trying to take all the challenges sectorally. You can't do all within the first 10 months of your regime. We have looked at it, and as a council, I'm sure that the governor also has an approach to be able to touch a few of the patches that we need to do in health, in education, security, and the rest of it. So these are all the challenges that are facing us as a government, and I'm sure that the primary schools will get attention. For the governor to have openly acknowledged that a school that ought to have as many teachers as possible could have only 2, it tells you that the governor is honest about it.
And it brings me to this question. You mentioned the councils should take responsibility, regardless of the fact that, yes, the state government is looking into the situation. Councils should be blamed for the state of decay, for especially the primary schools in their domains. It then brings me to ask this question. Now that the government is looking at, trying to renovate the infrastructure and improve on the system, are council chairmen involved in this process? Is there a working relationship to see? Because, I mean, they are the ones who live there and are closest, and it would mean that they have a role to play in ensuring that this dream or this idea becomes a reality. So what level of cooperation do we have between the state government and the council chairman to ensure the implementation of this, especially ahead of school resumption?
Well, it does appear that the council chairmen are beginning to beat a retreat. I'm sure you remember that the governor acknowledged the presence of the council chairman of Onelgas.
Some would not
see it as. I say it does appear.
Okay.
To beat a retreat.
Because some people felt like the comments of the governor might even scare or other.
No.
Because if we remember,
he acknowledged.
Paraphrasing, he said he was shocked to see the council chairman there. Did not expect to see him.
That shows that there's a retreat.
Yeah, because they've never attended most of the state functions.
But that shows that there's a retreat. That's what I'm saying. It does appear that are beginning to retrace their steps. And if that continues, it will create a very buoyant atmosphere for the governor and the council chairman to hobnob on to what would happen in the local government, particularly where the schools are situated, to be able to produce better results. So I want to think that there must be a synergy.
So if that doesn't happen, how then? I mean, because at the moment the relationship is still very sour.
The governor is the chief executive of the state. He's not relying on them. I'm only trying to extrapolate to say, look, now that it does appear that there is a relationship between council chairmen, it will help to fast track it. But if that is not happening, the governor has his own. So
does that mean that at the moment the plans that the government has at the state level to tackle these issues has not been made public? Is that what it is?
The governor I've said before that he's not a very loud person. Whatever he intends to do, he discusses it. He will get better opinion before executing. Most times he does things without even letting.
But is it
everybody.
possible that these things would be done before school resumption? I mean,
I'm
asking this.
You can repair. It depends on the level of damage. We're saying that something that you have abandoned in the last 10 years is not something you can just wake up in a week's time to say, okay, I'm going to rebuild the school. There is a curing period when you want to do repairs. I want to believe that we will assess them based on their needs and then begin to see what we can put step by step so that you don't also send the children out of school. This holiday is barely less than 3 weeks. And schools may be resuming next week. And if they resume next week, I don't think there's anything we can quickly do. But there are quick fixes which government will try to address. But he has acknowledged between fixing a school and giving teachers, which one? These are the options, the egg and fowl syndrome, which one comes first?
Then also, I think it's important we ask the Commissioner for Education. Remember that Professor Mom, prior to resumption last term, or the term before, we had distribution of books, materials, we had teachers training, and some of those. Even though some people expected that some of the schools should have been, sanitized properly, proper sanitation work, etc., should have been carried out. Desks should have been repaired, and bushes. Some of the primary schools, if you go around, are now overtaken by bushes. What is going to happen with all of those environments? Are we looking at trying to prepare for proper resumption? The reason why I'm bringing this up, especially with the distribution of books and the rest, is the same problem that we've been having with free education. And we know that in the state there's free education, but then there are many people who do not understand to what level, because we still have reports of parents who talk about other excesses of principals. I mean, we remember just the last situation that we had with some of the principals and how all of that played out. Is the government looking at expanding its free education scope, or if not, better still, making what we have on ground perfect? Because for many people, it doesn't seem perfect enough when we do not know exactly what the free education of the government covers.
Well, I'm not holding brief for the Commissioner for Education, but I know that there are no perfect situations. We inherited a system and we have tried as much as possible to sustain it. Running a free education system is not a tea party, and I know that those whose children are or wards are in those schools will acknowledge the fact that there's been quite a lot of incremental improvements in the areas of facilities, except to say that our concentration may now be towards the primary schools. But I think that what we're doing is the best within within this region.
So the free education, in other words, would cover just the school fees of the children.
If that is what you think, but I think that that's fair enough, because school fees is a cardinal thing.
No, we're not saying it's out of place or
yes.
it's a bad thing,
okay.
But it's for the parents to have a clear understanding, so that if parents are being asked to buy this by a school or buy that, they do not assume that, it's free education, everything
there's a template.
There has to be. It's more like a subsidy. That's what it basically is.
Well, if you call that, yes, there's a template that the ministry had provided for the schools. They don't go and the way to go. So I'm sure that they are working within that template. And any parent who finds somebody straying into the areas where government have said, don't go, such parents should be able to raise an alarm, and I'm sure that the government has been up and doing in trying to deal with recalcitrant principals who would naturally go beyond their bounds. As humans, you know that people will never keep to rules that are kept, except there are cohesions,
all right.
Instrument of cohesions,
Then we'll quickly just touch on the tertiary system as well, because we are aware that, especially in the state university, the no school fees, no exam policy is really biting hard on students, especially when you look at the economic situation.
Yes.
And then we've had rumors of increase in fees.
Yes.
Is this something that the government is looking at to find an alternative way of making this easier for children and parents alike, especially in these times where, the minimum wage is not minimum anymore?
Well, you recall that His Excellency has taken the first step by appointing chairmen of councils of tertiary institutions The UST has Justice Mary Odili, retired. And the Ajuro has Chief Adoke Amesemaka. And then the Captain Elichi Amadi has a war. These steps are intended to correct some of the imbalances that students find in the course of their studies. And I'm sure that that body or those bodies will be able to advise government appropriately. Nobody wants his child to suffer.
Because on the news we heard for the where Dr. Elwo was talking about how, the decay at the Polytechnic,
Yes.
no classrooms, no quarters for lecturers, and a lot of facilities.
Yes.
So it then brings to mind what kind of education has been ongoing there, and how urgent is it for government to step in?
I'm surprised that we're talking about it today. The governor has already identified that as a challenge. Something that was abandoned if you abandon this studio for 10 years, and I'm sure that you spend more money, if not replacing everything that would be here. It takes so much to repair. If those who went to administer Captain Elichi Amadi can raise those challenges, it tells you where we have been in the last 10 years. And the abandonment didn't just end with education. It's across all strata. So I want to expect that some step by step.
All right, we have a short commercial coming now. When are they at the moment? Is it functioning effectively? Is it good infrastructure? Is it bad? Is it poor? Is it very bad? Let us know on Facebook at Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. On WhatsApp, it is 0809-030-6416. That is the WhatsApp number. We'll be taking your calls when we return after the break. In the meantime, Kingsley Omachi says, I think that most of our primary schools are in deplorable states. Few teachers, dilapidated classrooms and restrooms are nothing to write home about. I think the governor should call for a general meeting with the council chairman after the break.
What's in the create?